All right, welcome back to Beyond the Campfire. I am one of your hosts, Steven, along with my other co-host, Will, the cowboy. And yeah, we're ready to go. Our s'mores, I got my Dr. Pepper strawberries and cream edition. Dr. Pepper's not sponsoring us, unfortunately. But Will, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Doing good. I'm pretty
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
I, I Dr. Pepper. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. So today we're talking about a very kind of it's a known cryptid. I feel like people mostly know about it. It's the Flatwoods Monster, but there's not a lot we have about the Flatwoods Monster. Like, yeah, it did appear like Mothman. It did appear in Fallout 76. You know, the video game that takes place in West Virginia. He's in there as like one of the creatures you can go find. So he definitely has instilled himself into local culture in Flatwoods. Um, and I would say, even though there's not a lot about him, he definitely, like I said, has instilled himself into becoming a legend to where, you can't go into Flatwoods without hearing about the Flatwoods Monster. But that's actually not one of his names. He has a couple other names. They also, because it took place in Braxton County, West Virginia. Um, so it's also called the Braxton County Monster, Braxy, or the Phantom of Flatwoods. So kind of like some cool little names there. I like Braxy, but we're going to call it the Flatwoods Monster.
Hey, no, that's fair, man. That's fair. I'm sure you'll get into appearance in just a second, but when you first showed me the pictures of what it looked like, to me it kind of looked like Mothman in a dress. I don't know if that's what you thought, but like when I saw
I
that
didn't
picture,
think that.
I like the red eye shape. I was just like, this looks like Mothman in a dress. Okay, and that's not like some weird fetish thing that I'm talking about. Like that's just what it looked like to me. So anyway,
Yeah, I'm fixing to get into the description, and then I'm going to get into our first story, which is really our only story we have of an encounter with the Flatwoods Monster. I did have a little fun, and I used ChatGPT, and I made it create a story of me and Steven encountering the Flatwoods Monster. Because, like I said, when you research the Flatwoods Monster, all you're really going to find for several pages is talking about the first initial report, which we'll get to in just a second, which is the first encounter and the only encounter. Um, but after these boys had seen the Flatwoods Monster, they reported it, and this is the description from a UFO writer named Gray Barker. Okay,
UFO rider, huh?
he's a UFO writer, so kind of gives you a little hint of what they think this could be. Now, the Flatwoods Monster was described as being 10 feet tall, had a round, blood red face, and a large, pointed hood like shape that covered its face. I like shapes that emitted a greenish orange light. So it's kind of like a flashing kind of light. And then it had like a dark black or green body. So that was what Gray had heard and what he had reported. Now, May, one of the people that had seen this creature, had actually gone to describe it a little bit better, saying that the head was almost like the shape of a ace of spades. You know, like the ace of spades card. So like imagine how that the ace of spades looks. Not the
Hey,
card, but like the shape of the
shape
spade.
itself, right? Okay,
And then
okay.
it had small claw-like hands and clothing that had like folds in it. And apparently, as we'll read about our first encounter, it made a hissing sound, and then afterwards it released this kind of mist that was very pungent. And it like I mean, it stank so bad, they were throwing up and gagging and wanting to get the heck out of Dodge. So that's what it looks like. And that I mean, I listen, seeing a 10-foot tall hooded figure in the woods with like red pulsating eyes, man, that'd be enough to terrify me.
Oh yeah, I would think it's like two Ku Klux Klan's members standing on top of each other, but nah, just kidding.
It's the Super Clan, man.
What's your rankings like the Grand Wizard or whatever like that? Is
Yeah,
that
I think it's like I think there's like Grand Wizard. I don't. I know there's like I think there's like a dragon in there too. It's
Look, for me, I get they did horrible things in the past, but like if I was a guy at that time and I just heard there's like these guys calling themselves grand wizards running around, I'd just be laughing my butt off. Like what do you guys?
dude.
What is it? Lord of the Rings fan club? Like what?
I know. It's funny because okay, so for my wife's dad's birthday, we have a friend of ours that's going to be doing a D&D campaign for us. Because he has not done D&D, but he is very much into the idea of it. And like I've never done D&D before. I've just mostly seen, the memes about people doing it. And so all I can think about is a grand wizard. I feel like when we do that D&D campaign, that's what my character needs to be. He needs to be a wizard that's called like the Grand Wizard. I mean, it just sounds like
I'm canceled.
I'd get canceled. But it's funny because it's like you wouldn't expect, like imagine being taken prisoner by the Ku Klux Klan. And they're like, we're going to take you to meet the Grand Wizard. I'm like, who is he? Gandalf?
Like I said, I'd be laughing. Like I'd be laughing my butt off. Like I was like, there's no way.
Are his little minions, little midgets that are called hobbits? Like, am I going to Gandalf or Dumbledore? Come on.
All right, let's circle back. My bad for.
No, you're good. You're good. You're a Grand Wizard, Harry.
Oh man. I always seem to bring us to racism for no reason. I don't know why, but anyway, let's reel us back in. So,
all right. So our first encounter.
Okay.
This is the only known encounter with the Flatwoods Monster. Okay. All right. So it started at 7:50. So it happened at 7:15 p.m. on September 12th, 1952. You have two brothers, right? So you got Edward and Fred May, and they have a friend with them named Tommy Hayer. And they claimed that they saw a bright object cross the sky and land on the property of a local farmer named G. Bailey Fisher. And so, naturally, the boys are going to run home and tell their daddy what they saw. And it was the home of actually Kathleen May, so I think it's a female, where they told their story. May accompanied the three boys, and as well, there were some other local children in the area who kind of came along. He had Neil Nunley and Ronnie Shaver. And then a West Virginia guardsman went with them, Eugene Lemon, and they went to the Fisher farm, hoping to locate what the boys had seen. And when they reached the top of the hill, Nunley said he saw red pulsating light. Lemon, the National Guardsman, had aimed a flashlight in that direction and momentarily saw a tall man-like figure with a round, red face surrounded by a pointy hood-like shape. And then after seeing this thing, the group had then claimed to have smelled a pungent mist. Some later said they were actually nauseated from this mist, that it was like that rank of a smell that it made them nauseated. A local sheriff and a deputy had been investigating reports of a crashed aircraft in the area. They searched the site of the reported monster, but saw, heard, and smelled nothing. According to Barker's account the next day, Ailey Stewart Jr. of the Braxton Democratic claimed to have discovered skid marks in the field and an odd gummy deposit, which were subsequently attributed by UFO enthusiast groups as evidence of a saucer landing. I forgot to write this down in there, but when they had smelled that pungent smell, they actually claimed to have seen the hood-like figure, and it kind of started floating towards them, and then that's when they decided to turn around and book it and get the heck out of Dodge. Then you have the next morning where, like I told you, the deputies were reporting an aircraft that had crashed, right. And there were some UFO enthusiasts who said this is evidence of a saucer landing. According to former news editor Holt Brine, newspaper stories were carried throughout the country. Radio broadcasts were carried on large networks, and hundreds of phone calls were received from all parts of the country. National press services rated the story number 11 for the year. So when this story caught wind, like it went on radios and everything, like it gained traction. A Pittsburgh paper sent a special reporter, UFO and 14 writer Gray Barker, and Ivan T. Sanderson arrived to investigate. And like I told you, that's kind of where we got their description of it. So we'll get into later so they of course, you got UFO enthusiasts. They were believing this was something extraterrestrial. However, there was a study in 2000 that was like kind of like reopened up this case and investigated it further, and it very much disproved that it could have been real. And I'll get into that after our second story. But Stephen, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely the skeptic amongst the two of us, and one encounter, weird circumstances. The sheriff that's looking for this thing, investigating the crime. He's not seeing or finding anything. So again, I'm kind of like going back to the Not Deer episode. For me, it just seems like a case of maybe a few guys got really drunk or high on some psychedelic mushrooms, and now they're just seeing things.
Yeah.
This, out of all the creatures we've talked about, this is probably the one I'm the least likely to believe in.
Yeah. I
But
think
interesting.
to me, I think the only thing that really makes this credible, in my opinion, is that it's not just a story of like, we were two dudes driving down a road and like we saw this cryptid. It was, you got these three boys who see something, run to go get their mom, I'm guessing, and tell her about it. And then she's like, all right, like, you think you saw something, I'll go with you. And then tagging along is an actual National Guard guy. And he's like, all right, I tag along too. And then it's like they see something. And then so of course, like I said, there's some stuff that disproves it. But to me, I'm split 50-50. I feel like if these people are real that are claiming to have seen this, then it makes a very credible story. And it could almost, negate whatever evidence they believe could be the evidence because, but yeah. So that's the only encounter with the Flatwoods Monster we have, and I mean, this would be a very, very short episode if we just went with that. So I did forget to, whenever I described him earlier, to pull up the picture. So I mean, you kind of talk about the picture because that'll probably drag us on a little bit more. So yeah, on the screen now should be the picture of the Flatwoods Monster. And the cool thing about it is, if you look at the bottom there, Steven, you see where it's got like it shows the height of an average man compared to the Flatwoods Monster.
I do look at that.
And that's it. I mean, you can look at its head and you can be like, yep, you see the ace of spades. It does kind of look like a hood. And it looks like
it's big. Yeah, that's something I definitely would not want to meet on a Tuesday night in a Waffle House parking lot. So, yeah.
it just looks like one of those 6'5" dudes from college that's like a bouncer for a club, and you just see him at the Waffle House.
You go to a lot of clubs and Waffle House, Will?
No, you and me worked at Waffle House, and I remember I would see bouncers in there from the clubs. Like they would come in there after a shift, and they would be eating Waffle House.
Oh yeah.
All right.
What if he caught a cryptid and took it to Waffle House?
All I could think about is, whenever you reference Chris Hansen.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like we're just out there in the woods looking for like Mothman. We find Mothman, and we're like, hey, Mothman, we need you to sit down. We don't got pizza, but we got Waffle House hash browns.
Do you accept our offer?
Do you accept our offer? Oh, man. All right. So, like I said, this would be one of our shortest episodes if we just ended it there, guys. But Stephen and I, not only we're here to give you some information about cryptids so you know what to look out for, we're also here to entertain you. So I had sat there and, during our Skinwalker episode, we played the game of which story is real, which story is not. We're not doing that. Don't think we're doing that. Okay. But because ChatGPT was able to write such a great story, I decided to use it again so we can at least have a second story. Now I could have just said, guys, this is this is not the only encounter, because Steven and I saw it too. I mean, we didn't report it to newspapers, but we saw it. But yeah, I'm actually surprised ChatGPT was actually able to create such a great story. It's kind of scary how AI is becoming. Just to kind of like ramble a bit, did I tell you what my professor told us in class or what happened to me last semester with my schooling?
No.
So, my professor, okay, he he's very much all for AI. And so he told us with our last project in this class, because for those of you who don't know, I'm a construction management major. Um,
Don't
we'll
say
see
the
how long. I won't say where,
yeah.
but
No doxing.
no doxing. But my so my first it's a my college. So my professor, um, what he had kind of told us, it was like one of those, it was a construction class. So like we would go into school, like we go into like a wood shop and we'd sit there and we'd like learn how to do power tools, which for me was kind of boring because I already know how to do that. But like our last project, we had to write a paper about a certain tool and safety. And he looked at us and he says, guys, if you want to, you can use Chat GBT to write your paper for you. And so I forgot about the paper. And so the night before, I wrote I think it was supposed to be like a 5-page paper. I
Okay.
wrote it in like an hour,
Chat GPT.
ChatGPT. And it
Yeah.
was funny because he asked us like, and I think I got like I think I got like a 98 or something on the paper. Because as we were sitting there reading our papers, he asked us like, "Did you use ChatGPT?" And I think like half the class used ChatGPT to write their papers.
Here, here's my thing. I do think humans need a certain level of competence. At the same time, where AI can fill in some of the gaps, and perhaps maybe even make us even better, like make our work product even better.
Yeah,
Why not use it? You know.
yeah.
So,
It's
um, yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
Thought, just a thought.
Yeah, the scariest thing to me though is like my mom called me yesterday. My mom's a teacher. I'm not going to say where because I don't want to be doxxed. Anyways, she's probably going to get mad at me because she texted me, and whenever I mentioned her in a previous episode, she's like, "Are you talking about me on the podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah." Anyways, so my mom's a teacher, and she was able to. There's a program because she teaches online, and there's a program to where it's like a Google program, and so she was able to take like a YouTube video about like a certain, because she teaches math, about a certain like math topic, and then AI was able to take that math topic of a YouTube video and then program it and made her a whole entire PowerPoint presentation over the YouTube video. And then she could also click another button and make a quiz for her about it.
That is amazing.
It's crazy. And all she could think about is the Terminator. So, all
Like,
right, without further ado, here is the Encountering the Flatwoods Monster as told by Will. So it's from my point of view, me telling the story. Okay. It was one of those late summer evenings when the air is thick with humidity and the sun sinks just enough to bathe the sky in orange and purple. Stephen and I were cruising down an old back road in West Virginia, the kind of place with the woods closing around you and you feel like you're driving into the belly of the beast. We've been out there chasing cryptid stories for Beyond the Campfire, hoping for something juicy. And man, did we get more than we bargained for. We were on our way to a small town called Flatwoods, famous for one of the weirdest monsters you've ever heard of. The Flatwoods Monster, they call it. Some say it's an alien, others a ghost, or something else entirely. Either way, it's supposed to be terrifying, and I was more than ready to dismiss it as another wild tale from folks who had had one too many. The sun was nearly gone when Stephen pointed out a ridgeline off to the side of the road, thick with trees that looked like they could hide just about anything. This is where it happened. He said, his voice serious. Normally, Stephen's the more rational one, but even he had that look. You know, the look that says something weird is going on here. I joked, "What, you think the monster's going to leap out of the trees and say hello?" He didn't laugh, and neither did I. We decided to stop and stretch our legs. There was something about the air, heavier, like the force was watching us. I know, sounds dramatic, but you had to be there. We grabbed our gear and headed into the woods, following a narrow path that locals claim led to where the Flatwoods Monster was first spotted in the 1950s. It wasn't long before things got strange. The forest was dead silent. No birds, no bugs, nothing. Just the sound of our boots crunching leaves. Then, out of nowhere, there was this smell, a strong metallic odor like burning rubber mixed with something rotten. Steve and I stopped at the same time, looking at each other without saying a word. It felt like we'd walked into a bad dream. That's not natural, Stephen muttered. We pressed on, the smell getting stronger. Then a light. Not just any light. This was a strange, pulsating glow, shifting from red to green and back again. It hovered through the trees, just barely visible. We froze. What the hell is that? I whispered. But before Stephen could answer, the light flickered out, leaving us in darkness. And then we heard it, the sound of something moving. It wasn't like anything I'd ever heard in the woods. It was slow, deliberate, like metal scraping against metal. My heart was pounding so loud, I swear Stephen could hear it. The trees ahead of us started to part, and that's when we saw it, the Flatwoods Monster. At first, it was just a silhouette, but as it moved closer, we could see it clearly. Tall, at least 7 feet, with glowing red eyes staring at us like it was sizing us up. It had this strange, hooded shape, almost like armor, and its body shimmered like it wasn't fully there, like it was flickering in and out of reality. It didn't look real, yet there it was, staring us down. We were frozen. Will, Stephen said quietly, we need to go. The thing moved again, gliding towards us. That's when I noticed its long, spindly arms reaching out. No way was I sticking around to see what it wanted. We bolted, crashing through the underbrush like a couple of panicked deer. I'm not proud to say I was the first one running, but survival instincts kicked in, okay? All right? Survival instincts kicked in, guys. Behind us, we heard that same metallic scraping, but we didn't look back. We just kept running until we burst out onto the road, gasping for breath. There's no sign of it, no glowing eyes or strange smells, just the oppressive silence of the woods behind us. We jumped in the car and took off, neither of us saying a word until we were miles down the road. Finally, Stephen broke the silence. Well, we got our story, he said, trying to sound casual, but I could see his hands shaking. Yeah, I said, staring straight ahead, but I don't think I'll be coming back here anytime soon. And that was that. I'd heard stories all my life about cryptids, alien, and things that go bump in the night, but I never thought I'd come face to face with one. The Flatwoods Monster is real, and I'll tell you what, it's a hell of a lot scarier in person. If you don't ever find yourself in those woods, don't go looking for it. And if you do, make sure you've got a good pair of running shoes, because when the Flatwoods Monster comes calling, you're not sticking around for tea.
Wow. I'm surprised you didn't make me hit on the Flatwoods Monster.
Listen, it was ChatGPT. I should have put in there, make it to where Steven falls in love with the Flatwoods Monster.
Oh,
Will, visibly shaken and scared. Holy crap, Steven. Hey, hot mama. What you
um,
doing after this?
I need to hop on the Chat GPT, um, like story writing function or whatever.
All
Um,
you do is you just go on regular Chat GPT, and then I wrote, write me a story about Will and Steven encountering the Flatwoods Monster being told from Will's point of view, and then it created that whole thing.
okay. Is there a way where you could like enter more specific details? So
Yeah,
like,
if you want to make it, because I just said us encountering the Flatwoods Monster as told from my point of view, but you could even put in there like Will and Steven encounter the Flatwoods Monster. Will or Steven falls in love with the Flatwoods Monster and takes it on a date, as told from Will's point of, or like while they're encountering it, Steven hits on the monster, and as told from William's point of view, and he's like, Steven was being real sus. He was like, "Hey, hot stuff, what you doing after this? You want to go get a beer?" And then it just hissed at him, like all women.
oh man, there we go. Uh, we talk about my love life far too much on this podcast. What about your love life, Will? Huh?
Well, my love life is
How are you?
pretty much stable, unlike yours.
Okay, there you go. Will is a married man for sure. He reminds me of it every day. So, nah, just kidding.
Yep, I'm
Yeah.
married. I got a kid on the way. Yeah.
Maybe. We can have, oh wait, she's been on the podcast before, right?
Well, she hasn't spoken on the podcast, I don't think. There is okay.
Oh,
I
that's right.
will. I got an announcement at the end of this episode. I'm going to talk about because I thought about some things, and I'm gonna go over some things at the end. All right. So I'm going to tell you the explanation that some people have for the Flatwoods Monster,
Okay.
and then I'll get into like the little bit kind of a small announcement, I guess. Okay. So in 2000, they looked back at this case and they reopened it to try to figure out if there was a more plausible explanation than some alien or some creature from a third dimension or a phantom coming out into the woods at night. Maybe there's more to it. It has been claimed that apparently there was a meteor that was observed crossing over at least 3 states, which could explain the bright light that they saw. And then the other explanation they said was that like that flashing red and green light they saw could just be plane lights, because some people observed seeing a plane going overhead beforehand. So they chalk it up to a meteor in a plane.
And obviously, I think our s'mores.
Uh-oh. Steven cut out there. That's why you don't do podcasts in a parking lot, people.
Yeah, that's right. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. I was gonna say our s'mores, should know me by now. That obviously I'm gonna buy that explanation over it being an actual.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I said, like, that's where I feel like it could be 50-50. It could be the Flatwoods Monster is real. Maybe the meteor that was observed over 3 states was the UFO coming to crash. And, maybe there happened to be plane lights at the same time. I don't know. To me, the Flatwoods Monster, I feel like is maybe one of those that's just, to me, I think it's unsolved. I think it's a cryptid that'll be unsolved. And I think, while there's these cases coming out where people are trying to explain it away, I feel like unless we get a second encounter anytime soon, maybe us, I think it'll just kind of be maybe it was a meteor in plane lights, or maybe there is something in those woods.
Maybe so, man. Yeah. For me, I'm like case closed. Flatwoods Monster doesn't exist. I know that's the boring answer, but anyway.
Yeah. All
Uh,
right. So my slight announcement.
okay.
Okay. I would like to get our viewers up before I launch the Patreon. So we're trying to get our viewership up. We have a couple ideas of how to do that, but what would be on the Patreon for you guys who don't know? There'd be three tiers. Okay, I'm still kind of working out prices on the tiers, but the idea is like I think maybe $2. It'll be just you won't really get much. Maybe it'd probably just be like, hey, thank you for supporting us, we appreciate it, that kind of thing. Maybe we'll give you like a shout out on a podcast episode and say, hey, such and such, thank you for supporting us. I don't know, I'm planning to work that out a little bit more to where there's actually probably some more bonuses you'll get with the $2. The next up I'm thinking it'll either be like maybe $5 maybe, and that'll be the one to where we're releasing a Halloween episode in October, guys, and that will be our one of our public episodes. But the thought with that is Steven and I might, with the Patreon, if you do the $5 tier sub, what could happen is the Halloween, like future Halloween episodes would be on the Patreon. We might do like a Christmas ghost story that's only on the Patreon. We might do, like a St. Patrick's Day sort of story that's only on the Patreon. And then during like the summer, for example, if you're subscribed to the Patreon and you got the $5 tier, you might be getting the like a bonus episode a week of something summer related. So like throughout the summer, me and Steven might not solely focus on summer cryptids or summer ghost stories or summer conspiracy theories, but we might try our best to find it. So for 8 weeks, you get 8 bonus episodes for the $5 tier. That's the thought. And then the final tier would be our most expensive tier. And the reason why it'd be our most expensive tier is because we talked about this and I think it'd be really fun. Only problem with it is for us right now is finances and money in order to do it. But the idea is that there would be a third tier, a $15 tier, to where me and Steven would do our absolute best to where you would get a bonus episode every month. And it's not just like a typical little episode. It is me and Steven for maybe an hour and a half episode of us in the middle of the woods looking for cryptids. And you might be like, well, that could be kind of boring. Well, the cool thing about it is we might revisit some old cryptids. And the idea is there's a like I said, there's shows I've watched before, and I like the way they structure it. And there's like an interview process before and then the investigation. And so what would happen is for like maybe the first 15 minutes of an episode, Steve and I would be talking to locals, asking them their stories about encountering the swamp ape, encountering the Flatwoods Monster, encountering Mothman, like their own personal stories of what they saw. And then from there, we would then go and investigate and try to find it ourselves. And again, the cool thing about it is like whatever $2 tier ends up with, if you do the $5 tier, you get the same thing as the $2 tier. If you end up paying the $15 and you're getting that bonus episode of me and Steven going out in the woods looking for cryptids, well, it won't even just be us going in the woods looking for cryptids. We might even actually go to haunted locations and investigate haunted houses and stuff. But you would then get the $5 tier and the $2 tier included in your $15 tier. So while around Christmas time, you would get a bonus episode of Steve and I maybe at some haunted place, and then another bonus episode of a Christmas episode. That's basically the idea.
I like it, man.
That's the idea for the Patreon. So we have a couple ideas, and we're going to try to get our numbers up, and then hopefully that'll be released. If it's not this year, I can promise it probably will be next year.
So, S'mores, we love you guys. But if you can like, comment, subscribe.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Beyond Campfire.
We would really,
yeah,
that help keep this podcast going. So
yeah. And again, we are a product of Beyond the Media LLC. So I'm probably gonna start putting that. I'm trying to think of how to announce it because I gotta remember the email. I think it's Beyond the Media at LLC at outlook.com. If you have a podcast idea, feel free to reach out to them. They're pretty great people. By pretty great people, I mean they're me. Anyways, thank you, S'mores, for watching. We hope you guys have a good weekend. Yeah, nothing else from me. Anything from you?
That's all I got, man. So,
all right. Don't get abducted by the Flatwoods Monster. Yeah.